Some people believe the Pope travels in a flying chapel, a golden cabin filled with sacred relics and flickering candles. A photoshopped golden jet next to a real photo of the Pope disembarking an Alitalia or ITA Airways plane. They imagine a small, opulent jet, a veritable throne room soaring through the clouds, reserved exclusively for the Holy Father. This is a powerful and vivid image, one that has been shared across the internet for years. It speaks to a certain idea of the papacy, one of untold wealth and divine separation from the everyday world. However, this captivating idea is entirely a myth. The truth is far more practical, grounded, and, in its own way, much more interesting than the fiction. The story of the gold plane is a classic example of an internet rumor. It often appears with sensational headlines and misleading photographs, designed to provoke a strong reaction from the reader. The reality requires a closer look beyond the initial shock. The first and most important fact to understand is that the Vatican does not own a private jet. There is no aircraft permanently parked in Rome with the papal coat of arms painted on its tail, waiting to be summoned. Instead, for international apostolic journeys, the Holy See charters a plane. For many decades, this has traditionally been an aircraft from Italy's national airline, which was Alitalia and is now ITA Airways. The plane is a regular commercial airliner, often an Airbus A330, or a similar long-haul model, temporarily taken out of its normal passenger service to serve the Pope and his entourage for a specific trip. This chartered aircraft is often nicknamed Shepherd One by the press, a playful nod to Air Force One. When the Pope is aboard, the plane's official call sign is typically Volo Papal, papal flight. The exterior remains largely unchanged. It retains the airline's livery and branding. There are no grand papal insignias or gold paint jobs. It is a normal plane, distinguished only by a very special group of passengers for a few days. On return, the Pope often flies the host nation's airline, a gesture of courtesy. Contrary to the myth of a golden cabin, the interior of the papal plane is functional and sober. It is not redecorated with gold leaf, silk tapestries, or precious jewels for the Pope's use. The plane is divided into sections to accommodate the different groups traveling with the Holy Father. The front section is typically configured to provide a private space for the Pope. This area is modest and practical. It usually consists of a simple seat that can recline into a bed, a small desk for work, and a private lavatory. The aim is to provide a quiet and comfortable space for the Pope to rest, pray, and prepare for his demanding schedule. Behind are seats for senior Vatican officials and closest aides. This group includes cardinals, bishops, and key staff from the Secretariat of State. They prepare speeches, review schedules, and hold briefings. A significant portion is reserved for the Vatican-accredited press corps. For most of the Church's history, popes rarely travelled far from Rome. Journeys were arduous and dangerous, undertaken by carriage and by ship. This changed in the 20th century with modern transportation. Pope Paul VI flew in 1964 for his pilgrimage to the Holy Land, using a chartered Alitalia DC-8, setting the precedent. Pope John Paul II became known as the Pilgrim Pope, his pontificate defined by extensive international travel. He visited 129 countries, logging over 100,000 kilometers, nearly 3 trips to the moon and back. Chartered aircraft made the papacy visible worldwide. Flights were meticulously planned. Security, logistics, and media in tight cooperation with the airline. Over the years, models evolved. Douglas DC-8, Boeing 747, Airbus A330, becoming safer, more comfortable, more efficient. Each flight followed the same formula, a standard airliner temporarily commissioned for a special mission, not a story of growing luxury, but of modern technology serving an ancient mission of global outreach and pastoral care. The question of who pays for the Pope's travel is a frequent and legitimate one. The costs include the aircraft charter, security, accommodation, and logistics for the delegation. Financing is shared. The Holy See covers the charter as an operational expense of the papacy. Host countries and dioceses contribute significantly to the visit. Hosts provide ground security, often involving thousands of personnel. Local churches handle events, transport within the country, and accommodation for the entourage. Donations play a crucial role, from Catholics and supporters worldwide. Collections like Peter's Pence support the broader mission, which includes apostolic journeys. Supporters view this as enabling messages of hope, peace, and faith, especially in remote or troubled regions. Critics ask if funds might better serve the poor. The Vatican argues visits themselves are a form of service, often galvanizing communities, inspiring charity, and drawing attention to forgotten crises. A papal journey is more than a trip. It is a complex pastoral and diplomatic mission, primarily pastoral, to connect with Catholics, strengthen faith, and offer encouragement. For many, seeing the Pope is once in a lifetime. He leads public masses, meets clergy and young people, and visits shrines. Diplomatically, as a head of state, he discusses peace, human rights, poverty, and environmental protection. The Holy See's relationships span most of the world, and these visits are key to its diplomacy and mediation. Trips often include ecumenical and interfaith encounters, promoting understanding, respect, and collaboration. Finally, these journeys show solidarity with the marginalized, visiting hospitals, prisons, refugee camps, and impoverished communities. They are not photo ops. They spotlight suffering and remind the world of its moral obligations. The airplane is the vehicle making these encounters possible, carrying hope to those who need it most. It is a mission in motion. Organizing a papal flight demands extraordinary planning and coordination, with security paramount. Safety is shared by the Swiss Guard, Vatican Gendarmerie, and national security agencies in departure, arrival, and transit countries. Advanced teams assess risks and plan details with local authorities, from motorcade routes to event perimeters. The aircraft undergoes rigorous security checks. Logistics are complex. The plane is a mobile headquarters accommodating staff, officials, security, and a large press contingent, with seating, baggage, and in-flight service planned precisely. The chartered airline and Vatican organizers coordinate closely, from catering to communication equipment for staff and media. Protocol includes the well-known in-flight press tradition, greeting journalists outbound and candid questions on the return, offering rare openness among world leaders. Upon arrival, formal welcomes are negotiated in advance with the host state. The plane uses major airports and follows standard international aviation regulations, with elevated security and attention. Strict rules ensure safety and the orderly execution of the mission. The myth of the Pope's gold plane persists. It's driven by human psychology and online media. Sensationalism sells. Shocking headlines outrun sober explanations. Once planted, a myth is hard to correct. Fact checks draw less engagement. It taps narratives about wealth and power. For critics, the image feels like hypocrisy and fits confirmation bias. Visual misinterpretation matters. Standard business cabins can look opulent under warm light. Taken out of context, photos are mislabeled as the Pope's jet and believed. The Vatican's measured communication leaves vacuums that rumors fill. Thus the myth endures, a blend of sensationalism, confirmation bias, and the absence of clear, digestible facts. In the end, the truth about the Pope's travel is refreshingly simple and pragmatic. There is no private golden jet. Instead, the Pope flies on a standard commercial airliner chartered for each journey. The interior is functional and dignified, a workspace and a place of rest for the Pope, his staff, and the journalists who accompany him. This arrangement avoids the enormous expense and burden of owning a private aircraft and has been standard for decades. The myths often obscure its true purpose. The aircraft is not a symbol of luxury, it is a tool for ministry. Air travel enables the head of a global community to connect with the faithful, engage in diplomacy, and show solidarity with the marginalized. These journeys carry messages of peace, hope, and compassion to a global audience. Understanding the difference between myth and reality matters. The Pope flies on a borrowed plane for a special purpose, a workhorse, not a palace, a tool, not a treasure,